Good morning, everybody. This is Martin John, and I am here to present Tao of the Day. What is Tao of the Day? I answer this every day, but if you are new to Tao of the Day or wisdom, you might want a little refresher. So here we go. Tao of the Day is a focus on the Tao Te Ching. And the Tao Te Ching as I am pouring myself a little kombucha this morning. I love a good kombucha. But Tao of the Day is a look at the Tao Te Ching. I ask my audience to pick a number between 1 and 81. It's kind of like picking a card in tarot. You pick a card, you pick a number between 1 and 81, and then we look at that text. Now, the Tao Te Ching is an ancient text written about 600 BCE. That's about the same time that scholars say that the Old Testament was written, so it is an ancient text, meaning that it's been a part of our our background and our development for a very long time, 3,000 years about. Now, what that we have to look back at the evolution of consciousness and the evolution of people as we look at ancient texts, because ancient texts I dropped my iPad. Ancient texts are texts that were written really at the beginning of writing, and writing is at the beginning, or very very near the beginning of the development of the frontal lobe and of the development um, of a logic approach to living. When I look at the development of people, when I look at the development of the mind and consciousness as it relates to, this universe, we look at this idea of, okay, well, mankind has been attached to a certain consciousness, and that consciousness has evolved from survival to relationship to logic. And we are currently coming out of the logic and moving into the spirit stage. We're moving to a higher stage of existence. And so that higher stage of existence is what I would consider a feminine stage, right? Like it would be considered the stage that is not female, right? Not female friendly or whatever. It doesn't have anything to do with gender, but it has to do with how one approaches things, right? There's structure and substance. You build substance and then you have structure. Without substance, you can't have structure. You wouldn't need structure if there was no substance. So there's substance and then there's structure. There was space, right? The void. And then we built structure around it, a universe. That void is Tao, that void is in you. And that is why we're here, right? We're here to continue advancing the experience of consciousness. And so when we look at the Tao Te Ching, we look at a ancient text, and we look back at ancient texts as much as we can to understand what it was like in the last sort of feminine, in the last substance stage of development, as we enter into the next substance stage of development, so that we can understand, well, how do we approach this when we have been lost and confused in a structural stage, right? If you look anywhere in your life, you see structure. Anywhere you look right now, there's structure around you. There's ways of doing things. There's a top 10 list. There's a way of measurement, and there's a way of being good and a way of being bad, and there's a way of earning money, and there's a way of being poor, and there's a way of doing all of these things. And all of that stuff has to do, all of those factual things, all of that stuff has to do with structure, not with substance. The substance is underneath it, but we're focused on the structure. We focus on the structure of the thing and we say, this is this, and this is good, and this is bad, and what have you. But that's not where anything is, right? We want a relationship, but we don't, uh, we don't just allow love, right? We have to define it. We have to measure it. We have to say, this is what it is. We can't just love, right? That's inconceivable to most people, right? Most of us. It's inconceivable to just have love and let it go at that. That's substance, right? The substance is love. Now, the definitions we put around it, the way that we describe it, the way that we the way that we talk in it, the way that we engage, what we do, right? All of that is structure. Right? And then we build rules around structure. Well, I'm in a relationship, so you can't have sex with other people or whatever, like however it goes. That's structure. And that's how we have built the world around us, right? Like I am poor, whatever. I am poor, I can't have a Mercedes. That's structure. Well, that's not necessarily true. like that's possible, you know. The substance is you. The substance is behind it. Like there is just because, just because you don't have money doesn't mean you're poor in the sense of how we structure it in our world today, right? So when we get involved in this substance area, which is where we're moving into, right? So you may have noticed recently that your pacifiers, as I would call them, right? Pacifiers are just things that you do to pacify yourself to feeling comfortable. So when you don't feel comfortable, you pacify. And my guess is your pacifiers haven't been working as much as you would like, as much as they had maybe last year even. Maybe you're turning on your shows and they're not pacifying you enough. And so you're turning on your shows and you're finding yourself on your phone as well. Or you're turning on your shows and you're finding yourself going to the kitchen to get something to eat because those are pacifiers as well, right? So you're doubling up on pacifiers. That's what I'm guessing a lot of people are going through. Because I'm going through that as well at times. And I'm noticing that it's something that's more common, right? Like you get yourself involved in either online dating or online stuff, and then you got your shows on, and you got music playing, and you got and it's just you're filling and filling and filling, and it's just becoming increasingly more grating to your system. And I'm just guessing that that's happening. Maybe it's not happening to you, and if it is, you might want to think about the fact that like we're moving into a new stage, and all of those things, all of those pacifiers are structure. They're not substance. The substance is within you. The thing that you're looking for, the peace, the calm, all of that, that's within you. But those things are making you uncomfortable. And so you're reaching for your pacifiers. It makes perfect sense. And it's not bad. It's not wrong to reach for pacifiers. But my guess is pacifiers are no longer working for you. They're no longer working because we're no longer in a stage of, of structure. We're in a stage of substance. And so we have to be able to focus on substance, but we haven't done that in millennia. Right? We haven't done that in thousands of years. For thousands of years, we have been focused on structure. We have been focused on making things easier. We've been focused on making things better in some way that is measurable. Right? And then we measure the world around us. Measure it with words like good and bad. Measure it with right and wrong. Measure it with rich and poor. Measure it with white and black. Measure it with all of these fucking things. None of them have meant a damn. Right? They've just been there to put us in a state of comfort as we let go of the substance of our lives and trade it in for structure, trade it in for something that we can divide up, something that we can measure, something we can say, oh, I'm doing better than my neighbor. Phew. I remember a number of years ago, I heard a story where it's like, if you're richer than 80% of your neighbors, then you're happy. But if you're not, then you're, like, it's like, what? That's silly, right? Like, no. So, and so what that structural environment was telling people was like, move to an area where, like, you're maybe not the richest person, but you're in the top 15% or whatever. And by doing that, they said you'd be happy. Right. And that's structure. That's absolute structure. That has nothing to do with substance. Doesn't have anything to do with substance of your life. It's like you will be happy because of the structure you are putting. And this is why people tell you exercise every day. Da, 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 da. Like you'll be happy when you exercise every day. And yes, people do become happier when they exercise every day. Change your diet, you'll be happy. And yes, that's true. People will be happier when they change their diet. And they say, get now, be in a good relationship and you'll be happy, and like get married and you'll be happy, have children and you'll be happy. There's all these fucking things to do so that you can be happy. That's a structural approach to how we live. Now, a substance approach to how we live, which is what we're going to be, which is where we're moving, right? We're moving into a substantial way, right? You want to live with substance. You want to live with this spiritual connection. You want to live with this wholeness. You want to live happy no matter what the scenario is. And that's what we're moving into. And that's what we moved out of millennia ago when we started farming, because farming is structure. And we started writing because writing is structure. And that doesn't mean language didn't exist. Language existed. Language was important so that we could have relationship. And relationship was the last substance that we built. And then once we built relationship, we had to build all of these other things around it, right? When I say relationship, I'm not just talking about love, romantic relationship. I'm talking about relationship to things, relationship to your neighbors, relationship to the earth, relationship to food, relationship to seeing and being and thinking. And all of that got, once we built logic, right? Once the frontal lobe came online and said, okay, now we're going to look at this as a logic space. We're going to look at this from the space of logic. You took all of that substance, all of that substantial, great emptiness, right? Just the openness and freedom of everything. And we locked it into religion. We locked it into rules. We locked it into comparison. And we locked it into measurement. And that's all logic. And we built that. And so for the last 5,000 years or so, we've been slowly moving more and more and more into a logic phase. Well, we are currently moving out of that and into a more spiritual phase of substance. So your shows, your pacifiers, your drugs, your alcohol, your your relationships, all of these things are going to give you less and less and less as we move on. And you may want to grasp onto those things because they helped you at some point. They helped you feel more comfortable. Well, when we look at the Tao Te Ching, the Tao Te Ching was written 600 BCE. Now, although we had been in the state of structure, we'd been in the state of building structure at that time because writing existed, so we know we were moving towards a logical sort of space. We look at the Tao Te Ching because the Tao Te Ching was written so long ago. It is an ancient text, and so whoever wrote this, right, presumably Lao Tzu, whoever wrote this, and we can look at a number of ancient texts. Any ancient text is going to be closer to an age of substance than anything beyond that, anything written from that point, right? Even though that they were, we have to be vigilant in terms of like, well, how were they translated? How was it seen? And all of these things, of course. Like this was written 600 BCE in China. This isn't a language that I know. This isn't right. But we can look at it energetically. Right? and say, okay, well, how twisted is everything in these translations? And when we look at these translations, we can see that it is focused still, I believe, on things that are not necessarily focused on today. So at least in that regard, we can approach it with the idea that like it has something to offer us. It has something that we can walk away from and have something to contemplate. You know, when I look at the Tao Te Ching, and the Tao Te Ching has helped me for the last 20 years kind of stay clean and sober. It's helped me kind of really open my life into the idea that, you know what, structure isn't isn't the thing I want to lean on. It happens, but it doesn't happen in a logical way. You know, like, I mean, I own a house and property and all of these things, and that's wonderful. And that's something that came about not in a way that was structured. It came in a very unstructured way. Because it came in an unstructured way, I'm also living in it in an unstructured way. You know, not because it came that way, just because that's the way my life is. My life is less structured than many others. Not that it's not. I mean, I even have a day planner that I use. But that doesn't mean that I'm approaching everything from a structural mindset, right? I allow the day to happen and I observe it while it's happening rather than I, you know, find myself in a position where it's like, oh, well, I'm going to I'm going to I'm going to impose myself on the day, right? I allow the day to be and I observe it rather than imposing myself on what is. Now, people who live structured lives can move in directions quickly, in specific directions quickly. So, you know, maybe my career moves slower or my relationship advancements, whatever that is, moves slower, or I don't get, you know, I don't get the things quickly or whatever, right? Things like that happen. But my life advances as a whole quicker, right? I get to live completely right away, right now, rather than living only partially, right? Rather than only living in the relationship, than only living in the career, than only living in the family, than only living in the money, and only living in some aspect of my life. And that has come to me through reading and following and understanding what is Tao and where that all falls to. Yeah, I'm sitting here in front of my rendition of the Tao, and I'm going to read 75. There's an interesting, it's just an interesting title. I liked the title when I came across it, and as I'm looking at, there's a number of beautiful titles here that I'm looking at, right? Like Everybody's Treasure, right? It talks about how the Tao is everybody's treasure, and we're using it all the time. And even if we don't know we're using it, it's still ours and our treasure. Problems are no problem. These are just some titles that I'm looking at. Problems are no problem. That's the thing. When you're connected to the Tao, there you don't have problems. Like, you have challenges and you see them as that. And it's not just like, oh, I'm going to change the words. No, you really do see your life as the thing that just kind of presents itself, and it's not a problem. It's just like you're here doing this thing. But I'm going to read, there needs to be a purpose, which is interesting. As we talk about the difference between structure and substance. Purpose. Is purpose structure? Because the way you get that would be structure. So purpose would be the substance. It's the thing. There needs to be a purpose. Let's see what it says here. People are starved for purpose because everything they do is taxed. That being so, why would they venture to do anything? By being intrusive, governments corral their people, forcing them to make a living instead of simply living. People have no purpose. Purpose is appointed. Without purpose, why would they want to live? All of this is intrusive meddling. It robs people of their lives and lines the pockets of those in authority. So that to me says, like, if you're born and you're told what to do your entire life and you go around doing it, you will eventually realize that, hey, you don't want to do this. You don't want to have this kind of a relationship. You don't want to have this kind of a job. It's interesting when you're in school, they say, well, what do you want to do? But when they say that, there's this undertone of, what do you want to do from what's available? What do you want to do from what's, like the scene from Step Brothers just came to mind. I don't know if you guys have watched the movie Step Brothers, but the father, like, is watching his sons make this, his son and his stepson make these, like, decisions that are for their dreams, right? And their dad was like, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a dinosaur. and and he started, like, like, moving his neck and stuff, and he's like, I just can't do it anymore. Because he was like, when I was a kid, I was able to be a dinosaur. And he can't do that anymore. And it's like, even his son and his stepson, who are, like, building this thing, and they have these dreams, and they're quote unquote childish or whatever. Even they're saying that's illogical. What are you talking about? Right? Like, that's ridiculous. It's just this little tiny scene in Step Brothers. But it's so telling, because here we're looking at purpose. And what if he was able to experience like that in his life? Maybe, I mean, who knows? Maybe you can be a dinosaur. Maybe you can, like, live your life as something bigger. Maybe it's not, I mean, whatever. But, like, it just reminded me of, like, there was a point that he said that he was told, put away childish things. But maybe that's not so childish. Maybe that, and I'm not I'm not condoning somebody, like, make, maybe I am condoning someone just saying it. Yeah, because who knows where it's going to take you trying to be a dinosaur. Maybe, who knows? I'm not even going to suspect. I'm not even going to make up stories about what maybe would happen, because that's only coming from my intellect. Outside of that, when you're asked to be something, when you're asked to do something, you're asked to do something within the structure that exists today. You're not asked to be or do something outside of that, because outside of that, nothing can be outside of the structure. We built a structure so that people live within it. And if you don't want to live within it, that hurts our ability to control you, to control the structure that we're creating, and all of these other things. And so when we look at, and once again, this is about stepping away, because that's what we're doing. We're stepping away from the logic mind and moving into the spirit mind. As we move into the spirit mind, we have to recognize that this is a feminine substance thing, right? This is about receiving. And we have to break out of the old structures. And so when we read this 75, which I'm reading today for myself, there needs to be a purpose. People are starved for purpose is the first line. People are starved for purpose because everything they do is taxed. What that means to me, why I wrote it that way, is that everything you do has a certain tax associated with it, which means that if you do something that is not accepted by the prevailing authorities or structure, then you will be taxed heavier. For those of you who were children and were different, if even if it was like myself, like I am a ginger, right? I have red hair. I was the only person in my school other than my sister who had red hair. My sister was a a woman, two, um, an athlete, three, a straight A student. I was none of those things. And so I was made fun of. I was bullied. And a lot of it was because I had red hair, you know, and so that singled me out, in my opinion, right? I didn't want to be different. And so anytime I did anything, like, making art and other things, if it wasn't good, if I wasn't good at something, I was going to be taxed. If I did something and people didn't like it, I was going to be taxed. And I was going to be taxed in a way that people would poke fun at me. I would be taxed in a way that people would bully me. I would be taxed in all of these different ways because I was doing something different. And so that's what being taxed looks like, right? When you tell your family, oh, I want to start a band, and the first thing they say is, well, that's not logical, dot 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 dot. That's a tax. Now, you can, just like in the traditional sort of taxing of the world, right? Like, we do a job, and that job, that we earn an income, and that income is taxed. We buy a product, and that product is taxed. Now, if we buy cigarettes, let's say, they're taxed higher. And if we buy, I don't know, like, if we buy cereal, it's taxed lower, right? Or whatever, right? We buy regular food, we buy vegetables, whatever, it's taxed lower because we are trying to incentivize in some way. We say, well, we're not going to tax that really high because there's no, like if you want to smoke, you can smoke, but smoking will cause harm to your body, which the state will have to, accommodate for, and so we're going to tax it higher. When we talk about people are starved for purpose because everything they do is taxed. Now, when you do things that are aligned with the structure that we've created in the world, you are taxed less than when you go against it, right? Entrepreneurs have to work for 5 years before they make a profit, kind of a thing. They will be taxed for 5 years just so they can start to make a profit, right? That's just the the way that people speak about it, right? Like, oh, well, you got to work for 5 years before you make even a single profit. So whatever, that's fine. But what that means is, like, they're being taxed, not outright. I mean, they're still being taxed, by the state, but they're being taxed in their energy. Their energy is being taxed because you can, if you make a profit right away, then you get energy, right? But every failure, every time you don't make a profit, you that's a tax. That's, oh, and it's hard, and you got to put in long days, and you gotta pay those taxes. This next line is interesting because it kind of wraps it, it really kind of sends this home. That being so, why would they venture to do anything, right? Why would they try to do anything if everything that they do is taxed? This is what we start looking at when we look at middle America. I don't know, maybe all of America. And it's just like people that just like, you know what, I'm just gonna work at this shitty job. I'm gonna watch TV. I'm gonna have my phone. I'm gonna do nothing. Right? I'm not going to be anything. I'm not going to try to do anything. Right? Like maybe what I'm going to do is try. I'm going to do this job so that I can have a business, and I'm going to advertise on Google and YouTube and all these places so I can be better, and I can get something. But that's still like maybe just doing what you're asked to do, because the world is asking you to advertise today so that you can have more followers, right? So that you can do all those things. Why would they venture to do anything? Like, how much of what you're doing today is really being done because you're under the influence? You're under the influence of what you're being asked to be, what you're being asked to do. I mean, I ask that all the time. And I try and be honest with myself and say, okay, well, this might be an influence. So here we are. People are starved for purpose because everything they do is taxed. That being so, why would they venture to do anything? Now, this is where we want to look at structure. By being intrusive, governments corral their people, forcing them to make a living instead of simply living. Now, by being intrusive, governments, right? Governments, quote unquote. But what we want to look at is structure. By being intrusive, structures corral people, forcing them to make a living instead of simply living. That's a big deal, because making a living, and that's when I say governments and making a living, like those two are connected. So we want to be able to replace those two with like structures and, I don't know, aligning with the structure, right? Because governments want you, because especially in the United States, I mean, I don't know how much of you know, but you are the collateral to the debt the United States holds. Right. So, I mean, again, I don't know how much you guys know about this, but you are the collateral. Like, when we want to borrow money, we say, look at the American people. They can do anything. Well, we're not going to be able to borrow much money because we can't do much anymore. Right. Like we do have great people doing great things, but we are not just the workers that we used to be, which is why we have states in the union right now that are asking for children laborers, because those children are the key to getting more, like, the human beings of the United States, right? The United States citizen is what we are able to borrow money with, right? Like, so the future of your labor is how we borrow money for the country, which is why it says here, like, by being intrusive, governments corral their people. Why do we want to corral our people? Because we need more money, because we're in debt. Forcing them to make a living. We want to force you to make a living, because when you make a living, you pay more taxes, right? So you don't get to just simply live anymore. Right? You don't, and I'm sure most governments are borrowing money through the future of the labor of its people. I can't be sure of that, but I know that that's how we do it here. So they have to sort of intrude in your life. So, like, when we look at this in the space of structures, by being intrusive, structures corral people, forcing them to sustain the structure instead of simply living. Right? And so if we get rid of governments and make a living, we look at structure and sustain the structure. The structure that we have built, right? The education system, let's say. Okay, let's look at the education system. By being intrusive, the education industry corrals people, forcing them to be educated instead of just living. Right. So we can take this and look at any structure, right? Even religion. By being intrusive, the Roman Catholics corral their people, forcing them to support the Vatican, right? Support the church, to support, like, it's this, it's not about substance. It's about structure. It's about supporting the building. It's supporting the debt. It's supporting all of these things. This is why this is why people are starved for purpose, because everywhere they turn, they're being asked by some structure, by something, by the government, by people, by institutions, to be what they want it to be. This next line is, people have no purpose when their purpose is appointed. Like my sister, straight A student, athlete, all of that kind of stuff. When she didn't have a purpose, I don't know that she does have a purpose. She keeps looking for things that might lead her to purpose, that might give her purpose. But those things keep falling flat. Relationships, family, all of these things, right? Even her job. Her job makes plenty of money, but she's still not happy. Still not enough. And it'll never be enough because her purpose had been appointed. I mean, she thinks that she figured out like what she likes to do, but she's only good at it. And that's why when I talk to my clients and other things, I'm like, there's a difference between being good at something and liking something. You like getting rewarded for being good at what you do, sure. You like getting paid a lot for being good at what you do, but you're only good at it because you were told you were good at it. You ain't doing anything. So as we continue through this, like, people have no purpose when their purpose is appointed. How many of you are living your life as an appointed purpose, right? So many people. I mean, I've talked to many women throughout my life who've, like, about the whole children thing. Women are supposed to have children. Whether or not they want to or not is it's we don't care whether you want to or not. This is one reason why I'm really glad to be a man, is that I don't have to answer that question. Like, I had a vasectomy when I was 26 because I didn't want children, and people questioned me, but I don't care. I never got pressured into having a child. I never got pressured into doing something that I didn't want to do. Same thing with marriage. I don't want to get married. Not like I want to love people enough to not marry them. I think marriage is a weird sort of contractual thing. Once again, part of this whole, like, purpose. Like, I have friends who think their purpose is to get married and have children, and that's fine. But is that their purpose, or is that a purpose that they received? It's hard to know. It's hard to tell because, like, your life before you started getting inundated with all of these, you know expectations from around you, you had no frame of reference. And then you started getting inundated into your gender, into your role, into what the people in generations before you thought they need. But you're treading new water. Without purpose, why would they want to live? And let's look at trans individuals right now. People are starved for because everything they do is taxed. Being a young trans person, you are being taxed, especially now. Especially now. Because what's happening now is they're a conversation piece, for government and all of this stuff. And everything that they do, everything that they try to reach for is being taxed. And they're being taxed. And then we look to the trans community and see how much suicide and how much attempted suicide is happening without purpose. Why would they want to live? And it's not that their gender is their purpose, but their purpose is being appointed to them because of their genitalia. And it's like, no, that's not who I am. I don't feel like I fit in that purpose. And that's fine. And I think that, I mean, I've talked to many trans people, um and they it, I mean, I don't care what. Like, I remember talking with Lona Curry, who, um, beautiful trans friend of mine, and he was saying, like, tell everybody this thing about me. And I said, no, I won't do that. And it's not to disrespect you, respect you, that I'm not going to tell the people listening to my podcast what you're doing with your body. It's none of their business what you're doing with your body. And you don't want to pigeonhole yourself into making them happy. So I'm not going to announce that. If that happens and it's behind you and that's something you've done, I can talk about that. But if it's not something you've done yet, and I'm not going to put you in the position of having to live by that, because that's this moment. And I feel like, and he believes that that was a very respectful and opening way to be, and it inspired him very deeply, because I didn't tax him and I didn't force him to say something that was happening in the moment. I put him in a position to be who he was and allow him to grow and advance as he did. But people have no purpose when their purpose is appointed. And that's the thing. If you are born male body and you're female, and you decide to identify as female, the prevailing theory of the world around us is get full gender transition. But that may just be part of the purpose that is appointed you when you decide that you're a different gender. Maybe that's what you want, but maybe it's also being forced upon you because of how we see gender. And we say, well, if you don't have the right genitalia, you're not that gender. Well, that's not true. You're just living your life. Now, you're living your life in this body, and you want this body to be the best body you can make it. And maybe that means full transition. Maybe not. Maybe it simply means that you live happily as male or as female in a male body, or as male in a female body. Like, those things are not mutually exclusive. Your happiness only, and according to this, when you are aligned with your purpose, because like your purpose is to be female, let's say if you're born a male. If we're going to talk about trans, we can talk about the education system. We can talk about this anywhere, right? This is all the same. It's all about purpose, and it's all about you making your choices and making your purpose. When your purpose is to live in a live as a female in a male body right now, like maybe you want to have your body changed completely, and that's fine. But don't let the idea that that has to happen be the thing that like, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with living as a like being a woman with a penis. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Like, the idea that we have a concept that is quote unquote wrong goes back to the structure that we've created, where gender is this, and this is this, and this is that, and dot 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 dot. Fuck that all. Be who you are. Follow that purpose, and that's the stage that we're moving into as we move into the spirit brain, as we continue to advance the spirit brain. All of this is intrusive meddling, and it's happening not just as purposeful, right? Like, so many of your neighbors who want you to mow your lawn, or whatever, they're they're trained to intrusively meddle so that you are easily controlled by the masses, right? So that's what we do. We put out this structure and we say everybody works by this structure. We mow our lawn, we pick up our leaves, we do all of these things, and in our little suburbs will pick up your waste once a week, a couple times, and we'll pick up all your yard waste so that we can make sure that you have a manicured lawn and all of that. And when you don't follow the rules and your leaves go onto your neighbor's yard, they get angry and they keep having to rake up your leaves and they get mad at you. Well, are you being a dick? Maybe you're being a dick. But what you're doing is, and so your neighbor's going to get mad at you and you're going to get taxed. Right? You're going to get taxed. Now, your neighbor's getting taxed as well, unless he becomes okay with the idea that, like, oh, he's just going to, like, he wants to keep his lawn clean. Right? Your keeps fucking his lawn up because you don't pick up your leaves. You're going to be taxed because he's going to get mad at you. He's going to be taxed because he has this expectation of having a clean lawn. So everything you do is being taxed. People are starved for purpose because everything they do is taxed. That's what we started with. All of this is intrusive meddling. He has an idea that he can expect you to, clean up your leaves. You have an expectation that you don't have to, but then maybe there are ordinances and stuff where you do have to. And so now everybody's unhappy, right? Everybody's being taxed because we're being forced to do something. This is intrusive meddling, telling people what they can expect from their neighbor, telling people what they need to do with their lawn. This is intrusive meddling. That's what this is coming down to. Right? People are starved for purpose because everything they do is taxed. When you tax something that we do, when you tax people for being who they are, you're intrusively meddling. It robs people of their lives and lines the pockets of those in authority. It robs people of their lives, and those lives and everything that they rob from those lives is lining the pockets of those in authority. Those people who made the structures, those people who rely on those structures for their living. Parenting is, I don't have children, so I'm speaking well out of turn here. But parenting seems to be, you want to parent your children to make them easy to parent. It does not. As we look at the Tao, we have to recognize that children are their own beings, and you are just here to escort them to, I look at 13. You escort them to 13 and let them live in your house for 5 more years. Um, but in escorting them to 13, what we end up doing is trying to mold them and intrusively meddle so that they will be so that they will live in the structure that we've created for them. You don't jump on the couch, you don't do this, you don't do that, you don't do this, you don't do that. And in doing that, we reward and punish, and remember, those children have no frame of reference. They don't know anything else. And so they take what you say as fact. It's not fact, it's just what you created. You made it up. This is the whole, like, because I said so argument. You do this because I said so. And that's a hard thing to justify. And because I said so is intrusive meddling. And because I said so is taxing your children. And that's fine. They're yours to tax. Just like, I'm in the United States. I am a citizen that will be taxed. It's okay. I can, the more I yield to the taxes, the more I can be who I am without concern for how it's being taxed and how I'm being charged or how it's being afforded. All right. Well, that was today. I read 75. I thought that was a good coverage of number 75. If anybody has any questions or comments or has a number, you can step up and definitely let me know. I would love to hear from you. If not, I will start to sign off. I am Martin John, and oh, Johnny. Oh, Johnny. How long have you been here, Johnny? Good to see you.
Hello, Martin John. It's lovely
Hello.
to see you. Actually, I've been here for quite a while, actually. I've just been listening very attentively, really appreciating your discussion and your chat.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
I had a couple of points actually about it.
Yeah,
Um,
please.
um, uh, Two things, really. One, you were talking about pacifiers early on,
Oh, yeah.
and I think traditionally we talk about pacifiers being things that perhaps will numb us or distract us. So
Hmm.
things like Netflix, alcohol, drugs, whatever. But I was also thinking, and as you say, we seem to be going through a time where those pacifiers don't seem to be working as much.
Yeah.
And what I was thinking, my pacifiers are ironically um, getting out into nature, sitting near water, meditating, things like that. And I've realized they're not working for me as much as well. So
Yeah.
pacifiers can be both the so-called the good pacifier, well, the bad pacifiers and the good pacifiers. That I guess it just made me realize that actually, it just really resonated with me that my pacifiers aren't actually working that well for me anymore either.
Yeah. And anytime we use something to escape rather than use something to like really sit with, right? So if we're going out in nature um as part of because it's just like, oh, I got to go for a walk because I'm overwhelmed or whatever, like sometimes sitting with that overwhelm, just like sitting with that overwhelm, sitting with it rather than going into some guided meditation or being able to look at water and because we could feel really proud of ourselves. Look at me, I'm in nature. Look at, I'm doing this thing and nobody else does this thing, right? Like this is,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
not enough people come out and like look at the, like all of that kind of like stuff, because all of it, like I tell people all the time, meditation can definitely slip into being used in a way that is not productive for your growth, really. like and it could
yeah.
be used as this pacifier, and when you do it and it's not working, we come we're at a loss. What do I do? And then
Absolutely.
you double them up, right? You go out into nature and try to meditate, right? You do all of the things that because you're like, well, if that didn't work, I gotta add another thing. Maybe you got to take something away. Maybe you got to stop,
I
because
like.
right now
I like. Yeah,
space is the thing that we have to look at, both in our minds and in our lives.
yeah. I like your expression that you sometimes say we double down, and
Yeah.
I think that's very much what we can do on this uh, journey of sort of self-discovery and improving ourselves. That we can actually double down on the so-called good things. And I think particularly with meditation, I no longer do guided meditations because I
Good.
just find them too sort of distracting. And actually, they're not getting to the essence. They're not getting to that
No.
still mind that you really need. And as actually you say, it's stillness. And sometimes when I go out into nature or I go for a sit by the water or do this, it's more out of duty than it is out
Mm.
um, feeling from the heart, or that spiritual mind. um I think the other thing I was going to say as well was, I really liked that you were reading 75, and one of the lines was, without purpose, why would they want to live?
Yeah.
And purpose is so fundamental. I think it sounds ridiculous, but I remember once a hairdresser once said to me, I sort of was in between work, and he once said to me, we all need a reason to get up in the morning. And it just, for some reason, it just resonated with me so much,
Yeah.
that we do need a purpose in our lives. And sometimes, inadvertently, searching for our purpose can become our purpose. And,
Yeah.
in trying so hard to, we're always looking for things to, or I have been looking for things to fix me, and that can inadvertently become a purpose, but it's not a true purpose.
No.
It's more of a distraction.
Yeah. And that's related to what you said earlier, your duty.
Yes.
You have a duty to fix yourself, but that is an egotistical approach, because fixing yourself means that you will be presented externally as someone fixed. And it's not
Yes.
really about you alone with your purpose, because you alone with your purpose are fine right here, right now, as you are. There's no judgment, there's nothing going on. You don't need more money, you don't need more stuff, you don't need anything. You're not even hungry. You're fine. So, right now, there's nothing to fix. And yet, you get this idea that I need to fix, I need to heal, I need to do this thing. And that's part of the structure that has been created in our world in this logical sense, from this logic place, from this place of, well, I mentioned early on, and I don't know if you were here during it, but, I talked about, like, there was this study that was like, if you are, like, if you are wealthier than 75% of the people in your neighborhood, then you're happy, right? Like, what a
Yes.
weird, that's all measurement. That's all looking outside of you. And if if you have this idea that you need to achieve this structured measurement, it's like, and I remember in that study they said a lot of people, like, they became the richest people in their neighborhood, and then they moved, and then they were unhappy because now they weren't the richest people in their neighborhood, right? And it's like, it's
Yeah.
all structure, but the substance is your life. And so, what's changed? What has actually changed with you? And that's the thing, we keep looking at that, and it becomes this duty. Well, I need to move out because I'm the richest, and I want to be surrounded by more rich people so I can be richer and I can do these things. And that happens with relationships. Like, I know I get caught up in the duty of a relationship, and like, I end up being unhappy in my relationships because, like, I have this duty to do, but it has nothing to do with my purpose. My purpose is to be, and to be as I am right now. And, like I mentioned, with that scene in Step Brothers where, like, the father was like, I wanted to be a dinosaur, like, what the hell? But it's like, seriously, like follow that, because it's gonna bring you somewhere. Maybe it's not going to, for me, like, I remember, like, doing my portraits. I thought me doing my portraits as an art project was the thing, but now I'm doing the portraits as a healing practice. That's not the thing anymore, because I'm not looking for the structure to define itself. But whatever you do, if you follow you, and you follow, like, even if it doesn't make sense, because logically we're moving out of that logic, as I mentioned before. And so many times it's like, oh, when I'm starting to go this way, I start to lose the structure of my ego, lose the structure of who I am, my identity. And as soon as I lose that, then I start feeling ungrounded and I start feeling uncomfortable. And that's what's happening now, I think, globally, as people start to become less and less attached to their their pacifiers, even as like those pacifiers relate to duty, because your duty is to have an identity that's attached to a structure created by other people.
Yes. Yeah. And interestingly, as you say there, um, even if it doesn't make sense, that so you started your art work with one idea, and now your art is more about healing, as and less about a professional career, I presume.
Yeah.
And but it's blossomed into something beautiful. But you didn't perceive that at first. Or I think what I'm trying to say is I'm trying to I'm trying to crowbar in this phrase, which is probably wrong. I'm trying to think of trust and surrender, or surrender and trust, even if it doesn't make sense.
Well,
Just if
well, trust and surrender is at the core of all of this, because like even if you wanted to be a dinosaur, yes, being right, like if we look back at that Step Brothers scene, I don't know if you've seen the movie.
I haven't, no.
You haven't? Okay, it's a Will Ferrell movie,
Okay,
and it's hilarious. It's really fun. But either
okay,
way, like the father was talking to his sons who are trying to like live their dreams and stuff, but their dreams are kind of ludicrous as when we look at them from the state of, if you want a business, you have to do like you have to do certain things to succeed. Da, 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 da. When you look at this idea of structure, and he says like when I was a kid I wanted to be a dinosaur and I let it go, and I've never forgiven myself for letting it go. If you can have faith that your wanting to be a dinosaur is taking you on the right path and surrender
exactly.
to that path, then you will go the right direction. Maybe it's not going to look like you being a Tyrannosaurus Rex, but it's
Yes,
going to yield something greater.
yeah, it's going to open up some opportunity, or it's going to take you down some path
Right.
that
That
um, it's that's going to be beneficial for you, or that's going to,
absolutely. That's going
yeah,
to that's going to give you purpose. And if you could, and I always tell people like, if you can explain your purpose, that's not it. If you can tell somebody clearly what your purpose is, then you're missing it.
yeah. Wow.
Because like it's like your purpose is being here right now. And so being here, whatever this means not having an idea, not having a preconceived notion of where you're going. Because if you have an idea of where you're going, then you've limited your reach. Like if I held on to
Yes.
the goal that I believed my artwork was giving me purpose through, then I wouldn't have been able to continue to blossom into who I have become.
Yeah. It became a stepping stone to something greater.
Right.
Yeah.
And everything is. But I think, when we're in our 20s and 30s and we really cement ourselves in this idea of logic, and it needs to have a reason, especially as we enter Saturn's return in 29 thereabouts, 26 to 33, especially when we have to we need to plant a flag. And when we do that, when we plant a flag and say this is where I am and this is where I'm going, well, we immediately start to, this is People are starved for purpose because everything they do is taxed. You plant a flag and say, I am willing to be taxed about this. And then your
Yes.
life can continue. And as you are taxed and as you are told, like, continue going about it, and we're going to keep the taxes low as long as you stay within the structures that we've already created. And then those people who want to live outside of it are taxed heavily.
Yes. Yeah.
Those people who want to be a dinosaur are super heavily taxed as they become older, because the people are constantly telling them this is not logical. What the hell are you trying to do? You're ruining your life, you're ruining your family, you're ruining everything.
I'm just about to run out of time, but I
Come
had
back if
one
you
more.
can. Yeah, I have for some reason, I got this weird sort of timer where I got my timer set for 15, but when people come up, they get 16 minutes, and then they get dumped out on their time at 15, but then I have to take them off. I really appreciate you coming up, Johnny, and your comments were great. If you do have a moment to come back up and finish that, that's great. Otherwise, uh, that was 75. I'm going to go ahead and read this again to remind everybody what we're talking about. But 75 is entitled, There Needs to Be a Purpose. People are starved for purpose because everything they do is taxed, what we were just talking about. That being so, why would they venture to do anything? By being intrusive, governments corral their people, forcing them to make a living instead of simply living. People have no purpose when their purpose is appointed. Without purpose, why would they want to live? All of this is intrusive meddling and robs people of their lives and lines the pockets of those in authority. And that's what happens. And that's what we've been talking about. I don't know, for the last over over an hour now, I've been talking about this idea about purpose. What is purpose? Like we have to be able to, a lot of people want to be like, this is my purpose, this is who I am. And every time I hear somebody pigeonhole themselves into some fucking idea of who they are, I always want to just roll my eyes, because I'm like, oh man, would you just be who you are right now and try and um not try and just not try and appease somebody else, especially me. Hey, Jen.
Hi, Martin John. Sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt.
no, no.
I had to. Yeah, there's a few teething issues with the app at the moment. I had to close down the app and then to actually come back in again. So
Yeah, there's something. I mean, I reinstalled the app and I'm still getting this, because like you came on and there's like 15 minutes and 59 seconds, but I know you have 15 minutes. So it's like
yeah,
your timer probably looks like 14:33, 32, but mine
that's
says
correct.
15:33, 32. Like as it's going down. So like it's really strange that you and I don't have, and I haven't experienced that with any, I haven't seen that or heard that that's happening with anybody else. So I got to make sure that I reach out to the developers and let them know. And I don't know if it's just mine specifically or if it's a thing that they're experiencing.
No, I just thought I'd mention that to you, but thank you.
Yeah.
So thank you about. I just came back in on when you were talking about purpose, and
Yeah.
as you say, sort of just be. I think is a great place. Um, is a great thing to remind us of.
Yeah.
Um, the one thing I thought you might be interested in, I know that you're. This is a little tangential, but I
Mhm.
know that you're developing an app for Tao of the Day.
Yeah. That's
And,
that's that's kind of been put on a back burner, but that is still a huge thing for me, and my
uh,
desire for this year. So.
okay, well, this may. So if this resonates with you, great. If it doesn't, please ignore it.
Hmm.
But I have come across an app that I've been using recently, and they started off the two people behind it started off on Insight Timer doing some workshops, and then they created their own website, and now sort of they have an app, and their app is just it's called Remember Who You Are, and they just publish a quote each day, and it's visually very nice app, and I have no interest in it whatsoever. It just made me think it's a visually very, very nice app, and it's working on the same model that you're hoping to have.
Okay.
In They charge a small amount each month for access to sort of the app, and I don't know why, but if you're interested, I'll send you a link to the app, just because. But then you may not be interested. But
No, no, no. Please send me, yeah, send me the link. I wrote down, remember who you are, and I am I'm always interested. Anytime something comes my way, I look at it, I feel through it, and then we'll see what happens.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's sort of the great. And the thing about it is, there I there's a lot of stuff out there, but for some reason the quotes that these people come up with just seem to be they resonate with me. They're very and they're very yeah, it just seems very, very authentic. And so yeah, so I'll send you it, because you won't actually either. I'll send you I'll send you something on chat or email,
Yeah.
because it's so under the radar. Even if you go looking for it, you may not find it. So
Okay. Understandable.
okay,
Well, I would love to check it out, definitely. So, I will send you a message with my email address. So you can, and just so that we're just more connected, and I'll send you my WhatsApp as well. If you're on WhatsApp, then we can just
I
be
am.
connected.
Yeah,
All right, yeah,
that's
we can be
great.
connected for all that.
Thank
Sounds
you
good.
very much, Martin John. That's
Absolutely.
wonderful. Um, I don't know if you've got anybody else ready to come up, or if you
I
want to wrap
don't,
up
but
now
you
for the
can
day.
pick a number if you'd like.
I will quickly, and the reason I'm doing this is I've in the past I've transposed my numbers. So
Okay.
I've started with one number, and say for example 74,
Yeah.
and then I've switched it to 47 next time round.
Okay.
Now, I was going to pick 57, which happens to be the transpose of 75, which was
Yeah.
the number you picked.
Yeah.
So I think 57 is a good number to go for.
All right. So 57 is entitled "Laws Are All in the Heart." Tao governs all things by discarding objectives, never possessing or interfering. All things only need abide the laws in their heart. In this way, they are free from desire. When Tao is ignored, objectives rule the day. Rules are created that make people expend energy to get around them. Intelligence is praised and rewarded while products become more demonic and intrusive. Weapons are paraded, fear spreads, and the hearts of all things close off. As litigation becomes the national focus, politicians and criminals multiply. The master needn't engage these traps. She is quiet, and the people follow her light. She is peaceful, and people are compelled to be honest. She does nothing, and all things flourish together. Have no desire, and all things will achieve primal existence.
Wow. Okay. I don't recall hearing that one before. Um,
I have not read that one on Tao of the Day before. I mean, I've read 57, but of other people's. But 57,
when
this is the first time I'm reading this translation.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Um,
I'll read it again if you'd like.
yes, please. Thank you.
Yeah. Tao governs all things by discarding objectives, never possessing or interfering. All things only need abide the law in their heart. In this way, they are free from desire. When Tao is ignored, objectives rule the day. Rules are created that make people expend energy to get around them. Intelligence is praised and rewarded while products become more demonic and intrusive. Weapons are paraded, fear spreads, and the hearts of all things close off. As litigation becomes the national focus, politicians and criminals multiply. The master needn't engage these traps. She is quiet and the people follow her light. She is people and people are compelled to be honest. She does nothing and all things flourish together. Have no desire and all things will achieve primal existence.
That's lovely. What jumps out at me, or what the sort of some part of the message that resonates with me, is that the Tao isn't goal orientated,
Right,
whereas so much of our structured life is goal and object orientated.
right.
And however, as you were saying earlier, we're moving into this time of being more connected with our spiritual side, or our spiritual mind and our heart, and that isn't governed by the goal orientated or objective orientation of sort of our to-do lists
Right.
and sort of of society's to-do lists and expectations. And as you were saying about, if your heart says you want to be a dinosaur, go be a dinosaur and sort of like see and actually see where it takes you.
That's right.
uh, um yeah, I think for me that resonates a lot, because I'm very much trying to move away from my logical brain into my I'm at the phase where I'm trying to move into being guided by sort of my heart.
Yeah.
And it's, yeah,
Well,
I
let's look at this in sections, and then
okay.
we'll. So the first part, very simple. Tao governs all things by discarding objectives. So we get rid of objectives, we get rid of
Yeah,
goals, right? Tao governs all things by discarding objectives for anything. Never possessing or interfering, all things only need abide the law in their heart. In this way, they are freed from desire. See, Tao doesn't want anything from you. So you do what you are called to do in your heart. And when you do that, you don't have wants because you are content with being where you are. If you feel like you have wants, maybe you're not following your heart. Maybe you're following the influence of other things like the education system, the economic system, the religious systems, the family systems, whatever it is. Maybe
yeah,
you're under the influence of something else. So that's fairly clean. Now we get into the meat of what this is about, and this is a scary sort of grouping of things, right? Like when Tao is ignored, objectives rule the day, goals, like you were saying,
yeah,
right? When Tao is ignored, objectives rule the day. Rules are created to make people expend. Rules are created that make people expend energy to get around them.
rules
When we
created.
create, when we put up a stop sign, if you drive through that stop sign because you're just like, I'm not going to stop here. The first thing you do when you do that is look in your rearview mirror and see if someone caught you.
Yeah,
That's energy. When you want to get away with something, you're expending energy by thinking about it because all of the rules are surrounding you, and there's so many rules. And it's just like, I just want to do this thing, but every time you do it, you have to expend energy because that rule was created.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Intelligence is praised and rewarded while products become more demonic and intrusive. What are your thoughts there?
Sorry, can you repeat that line? I
Mm-hmm. Intelligence is praised and rewarded while products become more demonic and intrusive.
Well, yeah, I think from a society's point of view, academic results are definitely praised and rewarded. It's one of those things. As you were talking about your sister, she was an a straight A student, and
Yeah.
she has a successful job,
Yeah.
and she's good at it.
Well, let's look at who are the people that are praised as some of the smartest people in the world. Usually, the richest people, the people who have the most attention.
I was going to say like the likes of Elon Musk and the likes
Right.
of that. Yes, yeah,
And Jeff Bezos.
yes,
And yet we look at their products, and their products are kind of intrusive. Their
yeah.
products are kind of demonic. And that's what this is relating to, right?
Well,
Intelligence is praised. We're praising their intelligence. Whether they're intelligent or not, we don't know. But we're praising them as intelligent while the products that they're putting out in the world are more demonic and intrusive. There is even, like a lab right now where you can grow your own children so you don't have to be pregnant.
no way. So
Yes. Where they can have like pods where they can grow children. You can just have children grown for you. Like I don't know how advanced those things are right now, but I know that I've seen like that these are existing. That is demonic, right? And
yes,
intrusive,
definitely.
right?
Yeah.
Like here we are, like no longer being gestated inside of a mother.
Wow.
Weapons are paraded, fear spreads, and the hearts of all things cut off, close off. Right? That's what the United States is doing right now, shooting down things in the sky, like
Yeah.
that we had this balloon come across the United States. Like, this is the thing: weapons are paraded, fear spreads, and the hearts of all things close off. Now,
I
this is
think.
an interesting line. As
Yeah.
litigation becomes a national focus, politicians and criminals multiply.
It's interesting that they put those two words together. The po- um, politicians and criminals. It's
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna put you off so you can come back on and we can finish this.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah, because you got just a couple seconds left. Hopefully, you'll be able to come right back on. So weapons are paraded, fear spreads, and the hearts of all things close off. As litigation becomes the national focus, politicians and criminals multiply. And this is where we're at right now. Just kind of talking about 57 laws are all in the heart. This idea
Thank
that
you, Martin.
litigation becomes the national focus. Like here in the United States, like Donald Trump just sues everybody. You
Yes.
know, and so there's a lot of things about this verse specifically that's happening right now. The idea that intelligence is praised and rewarded while products become more demonic and intrusive. Weapons are paraded, fear spreads, and the hearts of all things close off. Weapons being paraded. I think like Korea just had like some huge parade, like celebrating their um their
Their
nuclear
arsenal.
capability, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like this can't be coming at a better time, right? As litigation becomes the national focus, politicians, what sort of litigations are going on in your country?
Well, I think litigation, or how strange. Is how bizarre thinking about that. So we've always followed. Well, I think what starts in the US often ends up in the UK, and so we've become a much more litigation sort of style society.
Yeah.
And ironically, I've actually been told to sue the surgeon, which is not a road I particularly want to go down at the moment. But yes, it does. It's strange, isn't it? For me, it's all about responsibility. It's about um, if you're suing, is it you're because um, you're not taking responsibility for your decisions and your actions.
Yeah. I'm sure that the people, like, I don't want to say this, but I'm going to anyway. I'm sure it's the same people that told you to do the surgery that are telling you to sue the surgeon.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, there definitely is. There is overlap between those two people. Yeah,
See, that's
definitely.
a difficult. line to draw where it's just like, yes, do it, yeah, like you're the one that told me to do it. Like,
Exactly.
I went ahead and did it against my will, and here I am. This is now my experience, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that's a hard thing to, that when we go back to, um, 75, there needs to be a purpose, right? It's not just about like an end goal, an end destination. It's not just about like having that, and in here 57, this is about like what are you looking to get out of it,
Yeah.
as litigation becomes a national, politicians and criminals multiply. And that's I look at that, and I look at, we got this guy George Santos. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's just lied his way into Congress and stuff, and it's fine, whatever. He's a liar. That's our culture, right? Like, the United States does have a great, a huge arm of racism, a huge arm of lying, a huge arm of not admitting to yourself who you are, right? And so it's just coming home to roost, as they say.
It's such a strange. It's only something I've started to appreciate recently, that for some people, lying has become so normalized,
Yeah, it's
and
really ramped up.
it can be quite a cultural thing as well. That some societies, lying is. I wanted to use a French expression there, but it's just so acceptable. it's
Yeah.
it, it's really, yeah, it's and in some ways that's good to know, because you can then sort of, you don't put expectations on people, to be honest.
I had a client once. Um, First, she went to my workshop and we worked together, her and her boyfriend. And her boyfriend admitted that his past was filled with lying. He was a liar. And I was like, look, it's okay that you're a liar, but you have to accept it. You have to say that you're a liar. You have to admit that you're a liar first before anything is going to change.
Yeah.
And that had nothing to do with my client. My client was the woman in that relationship, and we went through my whole like healing stuff and all of that. She was great, doing wonderful. And then, a couple months down the line, after we worked together, because I only work with my clients for 4 sessions, she came back to me and said, I'm really upset. And this is like 6 months later or whatever, that he is, he lied to me about this thing and da da da. And this is really trust and all this stuff. And I had like a really brief call with her and just was kind of like, but why do you have the expectation that he's not going to lie?
Exactly.
Like, he expressed, like, I knew he was a liar. Well, see, I didn't think he would lie to me. Why wouldn't he lie to you?
Yeah.
Like, where did you get the idea that he's not going to lie to you? Now, that doesn't mean that the relationship is over. Just don't have that fucking expectation. And when he comes to you and says, hey, I lied, or you catch him in a lie, you have to just kind of be like, well, this is what I signed up for.
Yeah.
This is not like, he's a liar. And he is going to change over time, hopefully, because he's a good person, and you are, you're not putting him in a position to lie. Like, you don't, you're not doing anything saying you better tell me the truth, things like that, all that kind of thing. You don't force him to live in a certain way. But it's like,
Yeah.
we do that. We don't. And lying is, again, just kind of, part and parcel to what some people do.
And it's yes, but it's a realization that I've had quite recently, that I've always believed that that everybody's essence is good, but sometimes people behave badly.
Mm.
And but I didn't realize how much I projected my standards onto other people and how I hoped they would live up to them.
And
That's
let's
just
let's let's
ridiculous.
start. Let me take you a step back. That they're not your standards.
Oh, that's true. Yes, thank you.
You adopted those standards, and then you decided that they were standards. They're not. You can lie whenever you want, Johnny.
Yes.
The fact that you don't is only on you. And it's fine. You're happy not lying, hopefully,
I am, yes.
right? And other things like that. But it's just a thing that happens, like, right, like lying, and like, and we can take the extreme murder. It's something that you don't happen to do, but there's nothing wrong with it. I know that's hard to say, but it's true. It happens all the time. Like, and we have to recognize that every time we eat meat, we've murdered something. Every time we eat
Yeah.
anything,
Yeah.
every time we, even when we eat a soy burger, that soy burger has murdered more rabbits and like chipmunk and other things like that than we can count, because of the machines that are out in the fields just going over the fields indiscriminately.
Yeah. And we don't regard nature as murdering when sort of an animal in sort of the wild is looking for food. It's
Right.
just no. So I guess context is important to me, though.
Yeah,
And
and like the words that we put on things, murder,
yes,
right,
yeah, labels.
lying,
Yeah.
right, all of the labels that we do. Like, wait, sometimes it's lying, sometimes it's perspective. It's just from coming from a different perspective. Like, you read the 4 books of the Bible, they're explaining the same life, and yet they're all very different.
Yes. Yeah.
So, as this one kind of like wraps up, like, we got past the line, the master
So
needn't engage these traps, and these traps being um, litigation, these traps being parading weapons, this and like parading weapons, and being, like, when we talk about parading weapons, like, there's a response to that, right? There's a, like, oh wow, a big weapon, like, we're powerful. We don't, the master also doesn't engage rules, because all creating a rule is going to do is make you expend energy to get around it. You tell a child, well, don't do this, and then they do something, it's like, well, I wasn't doing that, right?
yes.
Intelligence, we don't praise intelligence. And so the master doesn't engage these traps. She is quiet, and people follow her light. She doesn't even say anything about those things. It's like, there's a parade. People are like, well, what do you think about that? She probably just shrugs her shoulders. Let them parade their weapons. That's fine. She is
Yes.
peaceful, and people are compelled to be honest.
That's a lovely line.
Yeah. Like, when you're peaceful and you're not going to get in trouble for saying what you're going to say, you're not going to be hurt because you believe something, you'll be honest.
Yeah. When sort of yeah, exactly. When sort of you're in a position where you feel you're not going to be judged, or you're
Right.
not to, or even if you are going to be judged, you're not going to be. You're not going to react to it. But
Right.
ideally, you're going to be judged. But
Right. Yeah. But that's the thing. When we can kind of create this space of peace, then other people are compelled to be honest.
yeah.
But, like, in that relationship that I was talking about earlier, the two could not see eye to eye, because one felt like there was an expectation they had to live up to that they weren't living up to, and so they lied.
Yes.
Right? That's not being peaceful. That's not allowing the other person to be who they are. That is having an expectation, reining them in, and saying, this is what I expect of you, and then you are challenged to live up to that or lie about the fact that you. She does nothing, and all things flourish together. Have no desire, and all things will achieve primal existence. I love this primal existence phrase. Like, that's at its core. This is how it exists, without any of the, not any of the trappings that we.
That's exactly the word I was thinking of. Trappings.
Yeah,
Once you take away the primal existence, doesn't have all of these imposed. It doesn't have the wrappings and the bows and everything else. It's just the underlying present, if you like.
yeah.
It's the core thing without all of the, as you say, the trappings and the bells and whistles.
You know, I look at that primal existence and I can't help but think about going to the zoo and watching like the great apes or whatever.
Yeah.
And you know, and like they're always just kind of sitting there. They kind of like flop around their genitalia, they pick their nose and eat it, and they just like kind of go around and do all of these things that as a child you're told, don't do that, it's rude, don't do that, it's gross, don't, you know, like, and you live under this influence that those things are the case, and yet the primal existence is still like, yeah, eat your boogers, play with your dick. You know, like those things are all still okay, right? It's you're you're not wrong for having done that, but you felt shame around it because of all of the trappings, all of the rules that are created that make people expend energy to get around them.
Yes, exactly.
Am I going to be seen picking my nose? Now I have to think about the energy rather than just doing it.
Yeah.
I have to expend energy just to do the thing that I'm naturally going to do anyway.
It's all of the rules that stop you from being natural.
That's
Uh,
right.
being, yeah, which those apes and chimpanzees and things aren't aware of, and hence don't, and hence they are natural.
Yeah.
They
They,
just be.
they're at that primal existence.
Yeah, that was wonderful. Thank you so
We
much,
went through that.
Mark.
Thank you for
Yeah,
picking.
no, that was great, and I appreciate I've been on a long time. So I think very much. Thank you very much for your time, and I will drop you an email with that link to that
Yeah,
app.
we'll be in touch.
That'd be great.
Absolutely. All right. Talk to you soon, Johnny.
Will do. Thank you. Bye.
All right. Well, yeah, this has been an hour and a half of Tao of the Day. I spoke for quite a bit first, and then Johnny came on and we talked about 57. I talked 75 earlier. Um, so there needs to be a purpose, and laws are all in the heart, and that's where your purpose is as well. And so they all connected. Thank you so much for joining me. If you benefit from the work that I do here, you can always send me a tip. Venmo at @MartinJohn_Garcia. Other than that, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And until next time, keep recovering yourself.